Indeed, it's a great day to be a Rotarian, today and every day. Howdy all. When my itinerary for this last couple of weeks was being discussed, as always, I asked the staff member responsible, so do I need a visa for the United States of Texas? And I have to tell you, she's from Illinois and she wasn't very amused. I'm coming from Houston the last 2 days, and a day before that we were in Denver, and the day before that, I don't know, we were somewhere in Europe, I think, lost track. Houston guys made me believe that that was the best place in Texas. When I arrived here, I did tell them I doubt whether the boys and girls from Dallas would agree with you, but we will not debate that issue now. It's a whirlwind ride that we have as president. You're in a permanent state of jet lag. And you know, it's a very frightening thought when you get up and you're not sure where you are, and you're thinking, where am I, and you just don't know. So I grabbed the bedside table next to me and switched on the light, and I found I was in my apartment. And I realized that was the day in my schedule when a meeting I had somewhere got changed for some purpose because I rushed back to headquarters, and here I was. That meeting that got cancelled then was the Dallas meeting, and that's how I went back home. So that's what life is at the moment. You know, to be a president of Rotary International is both a means and an end. It's a means to an end, and it's an end by itself. It's a way where I believe that I can contribute to make the world a better place, and still it makes my own world a better place, not only for me and my family. It's a way to give what I have to the world. I've taken 2 years off from the company, and I must tell you they're doing better without me, so I'm not sure whether I have place when I go back. But what it gives me in return makes my life richer. So I don't think it's just that I'm giving Rotary. It allows me to make my mark in the world, yet it makes its own mark indelibly, inalterably, ineradicably on me. When I talk of Rotary, if I talk to Bill, if I talk to my other friends over here, Don and Ray and so on, for each one it means many things. For each person it is different. I'm fortunate that I belong to a small group of people, just 105, who have understood the power of Rotary to do good. These 105 are the presidents of Rotary International, and I don't think anyone who has been a president will ever forget that experience in his lifetime. Indeed, it is a lifetime's experience, that 1 year. The 2 years that I've been a president-elect and a president, I just cannot describe in words. My wife and I in the last 2 years have spent our life largely in hotels and airplanes. We try and put in at least a week at headquarters each month because you've got to run the business as well. But we have devoted our efforts to Rotary, and our diary has never been set by geography or by conveniences. We just go where Rotary needs us, and we go to the places where Rotary can do maximum good to the people it serves. I have witnessed the draw of the office of the president. Sometimes you look at your diary and you say, how the hell did I agree to this? And I recall that happening to me just a few weeks or months ago, when at the beginning of the month I was reviewing my travel itinerary, and I found I was going to San Diego for a dinner, flying 6-7 hours. So I called my friend Steve Brown and I said, Steve, are you sure you want me to come 6-7 hours to have dinner with you guys? And he said, are you joking? We've been selling you for the last 24 months and you've got to come. We're calling it $1 million dinner, and we're raising money on the occasion of your visit. So I said, okay, I'm there. And when I arrived there, 2:30 or so in the afternoon, Steve and his wife met me, and I asked him, so Steve, how much money have you made tonight? You call it $1 million dinner? He just smiled. And I thought to myself, this guy made me come here 6-7 hours. I hope they at least made $500,000. Otherwise it's such a waste. Anyway, we turned up at the dinner, black tie dinner, everyone in their best royals, the men and the women, and they were collecting money up to the gate up to that time. Commitments, cash, checks, commitments when you're alive, commitments when you're dead, everything. Anything went. And just before I spoke, they put the figure up on the screen, the total amount in cash and pledges, and it said $15,420,000. When I finished speaking, someone from the audience came up and told me, Mr. President, I will match that 15 million with another $15 million. So the taking for the night was $31.2 million. That's something, isn't it? I realized that when the gentleman came up, it had nothing to do with me. Could have been any president speaking. But it's just that the words of the president are sometimes heard differently. There's a lot of respect and trust that you place on what the president says. And then I reminded myself that it's worth killing yourself for this job because of the good that you can achieve. The last 6 months, my wife and I have gone home for 4 days. After 5 months. Not because we're not allowed to go, but it's just because we've been busy. And one of the things I'm doing is driving costs down, so I thought I need to set the example. Not got to go home on your money each time. We have almost the magical ability that this office gives us and the power that it has, and you'll never have it again. So we've got to make sure that we can do maximum good with these 365 days. We were in Italy and we were supposed to see the Pope. Unfortunately, the meeting got transferred from morning to evening, and the next morning I had to be in Seoul, Korea. So I said I can't stay. And the person who was taking us around must have been their best man, because he showed me pictures with Mrs. Obama, with Mr. Clinton, and all the big people in the world. And I asked him, so how is this Pope? And he gave me a very candid answer. The popes of the old days didn't have such a good reputation, some of the older guys. He said, Mr. Ravindran, at last we have a real Pope. So I was feeling a little sorry that I could not meet him. But I think I came off with a better deal, thanks to the Italian Rotarians and the power they had. Because on the 30th of April 2016, the Pope will give Mass only to Rotarians at St. Peter's Square. And I have reserved 8,000 seats. And I hope some of you will be there. I think that it will be a big draw in a lot of the Catholic countries. I think it will place Rotary on a very high pedestal. And the Pope still wields a lot of power in many countries. I mean, when he was here in New York, you should have seen the crowds that he drew. So I'm looking forward to that. And you can understand the relationship between the Vatican and Rotarians, because the Vatican works with a project with Rotarians in a project in Cambodia, where they do telemedicine, they have trucks going out to the outbacks, doing, with doctors, treating them. So we have a very close relationship with the best in the world. We were there in Rome, and we had a meeting where they were raising money for the foundation in their magnificent Olympico theatre, packed to the rafters. And when you see this, you think, wow, this is really Rotary, and what power these people have, the generosity that Rotarians have, and their ability, their passion to give. But of course, my job is raising money also, one of my jobs. And we have this great polio eradication program, which is getting close to the finish. We still need some money. We need another $1.5 billion. This money does not come only from Rotarians, it comes from lots of others. Your US Senate has just sanctioned $250 million plus. Mr. Gates was there, Rotarians were there to raise this money. So I think we'll raise it, and one of the events I went for was, the abbreviation is CHOGA. That means Commonwealth Heads of Governments Meeting. And there was this meeting where we had the Prime Minister of Australia, the Prime Minister of Malta, it will be posted in Malta, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Foreign Ministers of England, Canada, Nigeria, and myself speaking to this little small group of reporters and influential people saying we have to find this money. The first speaker was the Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, and I was the last speaker. In between, we had all these other prime ministers and foreign ministers speaking. And you know what the Secretary General said? He drew a picture of how far we have arrived in polio and how close we were to success. And he said we have to find this money, and we have to ensure that governments continue to allocate money in their health ministry budgets to go on with this immunization, because this is not a stage we withdraw. And he said there are 3 reasons why we have got to this stage. Reason number 1 is this group called Rotary International. He said, I've been to their events, I've seen the work they do. Without them, we could never have got where we are. I was so elated, I actually forgot what are the other 2 reasons he said. But this is the power of Rotary. As I reminded in Salt Lake City, when I was speaking at the conference of religions, it's called Parliament of Religions. It's a different feeling. I mean, we knew we were sort of a round square peg in a round hole, because we were surrounded by imams and bishops and rabbis and monks and whatnot, all with long robes, some with long hair also. And I was wondering, what do I go and tell these people when I speak to them as a president of Rotary? So I told them that what makes Rotary unique is the framework in which we serve others, not with, not through, or in spite of the fact that we accept all the religions into our organization. There is no particular religion that we support. This room itself must be represented by many, many religions, faiths, and sects. We work in parallel to these religions and sects. You could be more than a dozen faiths in this very room. You see, in Rotary, every religion is respected. In Rotary, every tradition is welcome. In Rotary, every conviction is honored. We have only one caveat, and that is, we will not allow these faiths and religions to divide us. And I wish the rest of the world would follow our advice, because so often you see these major conflicts around the world, all based on different faiths of the same God. So when I got through on that speech, I think it was pretty well received. Here, our friendship, we gather in friendship, and it's bonded by this thread of service. I mean, that's why we meet. If it was just to have fun, we would have joined some golf club, we would have joined a Rotary club. It gives people, our organization gives people a way to come together, gives people a reason to work together, and it gives them a cause to stay together. Because whatever the differences are, whatever the debates are, when it's for the common good of the community, of your children's future, people begin to cooperate in ways that are otherwise impossible or will not be possible in other contexts. And that is the power of Rotary that I see. I just mentioned that we are very, very close to eradicating polio. Of course, we have challenges. We have challenges in Pakistan and Afghanistan where polio is now limited. We have now brought it down to 70 cases from 350,000 we started. We have inoculated or vaccinated more than 2.5 billion children. We have reached every single child on earth, which by itself is a miracle. And this project has cost us $11.5 billion or thereabout. So you can see it's not a joke. But most of us think that we have reached the end point when we finish this job. Well, let me tell you, we still have some challenges, particularly in Pakistan. Even today we had some serious issues which need to be sorted out. But most of us think this is the end point. Most of us think that, all right, once we are done with polio, our children are all safe. Well, you're right when you think so. A lot of us think that once we reach polio, our fear is lifted, that our children will not get crippled again. You're right. But what you perhaps don't know is that when we finish polio, we will release into the economy, or our savings on our health services alone is $50 billion in the next 30 years. $50 billion, which can then be diverted to malaria, to TB, to cancer, to AIDS, whatever you might think. And you can see that it's a no-brainer economically. It's a return on investment which no banker in this room can offer. It's something we need to do, if nothing else, because it's such a rewarding action. And there's more than that. It has left behind a health infrastructure which is going to serve us in good stead for lots of other reasons. Let's take, for instance, the Ebola last summer. You know what a terrifying experience it was for many people. You know how worried we all were that it would reach our country and what would happen if it reaches our countries. Well, one of the terrifying scenarios that was painted, or shall I say one of the most terrifying scenarios that was painted, was what will happen if that virus reached Nigeria. Nigeria is a trade hub of Africa. It's a place where people come, gather, and they disperse into different parts of the African continent. It's a place with a dense population. It's got poor sanitation. It's got high mobility of people up and down. And the last thing you want to hear is Lagos and Ebola, because Lagos is the capital of Nigeria. If Ebola got to Lagos, well, it was a question of saying finito. That's the end of it. But let me tell you, Ebola did reach Lagos. It came from Liberia on an airplane, and Nigeria had its first case of Ebola. But Nigeria did not allow it to go further. It stopped right there in Lagos because they had the emergency operation centers. They had the disease surveillance units that was necessary to monitor it. They had the lines of communication between internal and external health forces, like connections to CDC, their own health ministry, and so on. And they had the capacity for real-time data analysis and modeling. And all of this was ready, waiting when we needed it most, not by accident, but because Rotary set it up for polio. And you can see how the whole polio infrastructure went into effect to stop that Ebola right there. Everything there was established by the funds given by people like you and I. And we can take credit for the fact that Ebola was not allowed to proceed further simply because we had the whole machinery in place. So that's the power of Rotary, and that's the power of what we can achieve even after polio. I had a meeting on January 1st. In fact, I hosted the president of Lions International, the president of Kiwanis International, and the president of Optimus International. And they all envy us they think that was the greatest thing you did, this polio eradication, because it placed you in the global stage as a global power, a global powerhouse. And they're all trying to follow our examples of doing something at a global level because they think that's a way to elevate your image in the real world. But yet I must tell you, it's not the power of Rotary that has captivated me personally. It is not the power of Rotary which drew me. It is not the power of Rotary which has kept me so close to Rotary, working with Rotarians all these years. I think it is the lessons, it is the values, it is the ideas, it's the vision that Rotarians were able to formulate and put together. The audacity, for example, to say that we will eradicate polio. The ability in countries to say we will build a children's hospital just to take care of all the burns. The focus, for example, that the Indians have saying we will build 40,000 new toilets in 40,000 new schools, so that every school in our country has a toilet in the next 2 years. And just having a toilet makes such a big difference. You see, idealism is something that I think idealism is something that we absorb from the time we are born. It's something that is taught to us in our infancy. This is what our parents tell us. They say that you must help people who are hurt. They say you must share what we have. The lessons that our parents and teachers teach us gets into us, and we become who we are because of those lessons. It becomes our most central concept of what is within us as we grow older. But then as the years start gathering within us, we see the world around us, and we see that there is injustice happening all around us. We see that there are hundreds of millions of children, people who have who don't have enough food, who live under $1 a day. We see that children are dying because they lack basic medicine, which was so easily available to anyone with a little bit of funds. And we see that this should not be so because the world produces enough food to feed all of us. It is just that our distribution system is so bad, we are not able to get it to the people who are otherwise starving. We learn all this and then gradually realize that our world accepts this. And we sort of get on with our work. We do little to change it. And we say, okay, we give some money to someone who comes. We shake our heads and say, well, bad luck. I wish it was different. But what can I do against these odds? And we continue. Most people do not see it any other way. So they continue. And the worries trouble us less. The suffering that we learned and we knew recedes in our background. And humanity just grows poorer as a result. Some, of course, take different paths. We feel that without helping others, our lives are less valid. We feel that without helping others, our lives have less merit. We feel that without helping others, our role on earth has less meaning. Then we find a way to help, find a way to do something about it. And we find our way into organizations like Rotary. Because with Rotary, we leverage our resources and we're able to get together with others and try and do something a little more substantial than what we could have achieved alone. Some, of course, take it to the furthest point. And these are the Mahatma Gandhis, and these are the Mandelas, and these are the Martin Luther Kings and Mother Teresa's. Mother Teresa, if you ask her what's the most important thing you do, she would say building toilets. And she's quite serious about it. You see, Mother Teresa is someone who has recognized the world over. She has audiences with princes and kings and queens and heads of states. When she travels in India, in Calcutta, if a car stops in the middle of a junction, and because she saw a leper or she saw some beggar on the road, she wanted to clean him up and put him into the Land Rover and take him back. Whole traffic is stopped. No one can move. And the police will stop everything and they say, Mother is here, Mother is here. Mother wields more power than the biggest politician in India. She wielded rather. I have been to a concert which featured the sitarist Ravi Shankar's brother. And we had high-priced tickets, sponsored by Rotary. I had held some office, so I had a front row seat. And I know the rest of the people in those front row seats had very expensive seats. And they were all waiting for Mother Teresa to come. Now, Mother Teresa did come. She came a little late, but did come. A frail lady, almost hunched over. And yet when she walks in, the aura, the image she projects is bigger than everyone here in this room. But she came in with about 20 or 30 children. All the children that she has around her community, her slum sometimes. She walked right to the front. She stood in front of us and said, you get up, you see these things every day, these are for my children, and sent all these big wigs to the back of the table. And put her children in the front 2 rows. No one objected. Everyone just smiled. They indulged her because they just loved her. I was in her office once, and whilst I was talking to her, I could see a door banging and shutting behind. And she said, she caught my eye, she looked and said, that's my toilet. And it was a very basic looking toilet. And she told me, my son, to serve the poor, you must live like the poor. And she demonstrated it with her toilet. And there's a story how there was an earthquake in Armenia. And there was a lot of damage, but there was one hospital which was intact. So she took her nuns, and she went there, and she always starts by cleaning the toilet and the public areas, because she says that is what is kept worst. And while she was doing her job, many volunteers come and she allocates them work, and she found this man came dressed like this in a suit and a tie. And she said, you're a volunteer? Here, you take on those 2 toilets, gave him a pail, gave him a brush, told him don't waste water, this is the way to clean it, and went off. After about 20 or 25 minutes, this gentleman came back to her room. And she said, so you finished the job? He said, yes, mother. Shall I give you another job now? He said, mother, I would like to, but I've got to go because I'm really the vice chairman of this airline and I came personally to give you a ticket for tomorrow. Air ticket. But you see, this person says that those 20 minutes he spent was the most valuable 20 minutes he ever lived in his life. He said, I was able to see the world through Mother Teresa's eyes. And he says, I would never exchange that experience for anything else. And I'm telling you, Rotary allows us to see the world from Mother Teresa's eyes, or from Mandela's eyes, or from anyone for that matter, maybe Mahatma Gandhi, because we need to do it only for 20 minutes, or 20 days, or 20 hours. We don't give up our life and go and live the life that they did. But those 20 minutes, those 20 hours, those 20 days, we can be a Martin Luther King. And that, I submit to you, is the power of Rotary. So, I myself am grateful beyond words for the work that I do. And I'm telling you that Rotary will be a gift to you in the same measure that you choose to be a gift to the world.